Hey friends, so I just learned something kind of interesting, which is that when I have a fan pointed at me from like 50 cm, 60, 70 cm away, a couple of feet away, I guess, a foot and a half away, it it makes the audio choppy when I speak into the mic, which I don't know why that is, but I've turned off the fan and turned on the air conditioning, so it sounds better, but I'm sitting in a very warm room right now. Anyway, today's video I want to talk about vanity metrics, by which I mean follower count, subscribers, page likes, traffic, stuff like that. I do think I'm kind of working up to a larger post slash video slash thesis about fame and publicity and being a public figure. But I don't know if, I don't really want to, not going to talk about those things in the abstract right now. I will figure out what's relevant as I go, and I guess this is a subset of that. I'm gonna make all these smaller videos to build up to a bigger picture, because I don't want to get kind of prematurely optimized and have too grand a picture that isn't entirely satisfying to me. So I'm going to talk a bit about my experiences making stuff in public and how I think there's this widespread assumption that if you're making something in public, that you will want a larger audience in the general broad sense. And while there are things that are good to have that come with a larger audience in of itself is not necessarily a good thing, and in my opinion. And what tends to happen is that people see other people with, whether it's musicians, artists, vloggers, YouTubers, whatever. There's this sense that whoever has the higher follower count is more relevant or more significant, substantial, more important. And that, I think, is a failing. It's one of the things that is wrong about society, right? I don't want to be so dramatic, but it's, I think, more locally or more individually, it's a kind of a bloatware in the head. And by bloatware, so bloatware is the stuff that comes installed with your computer that you didn't ask for, that you then have to uninstall or just deal with because it's there and you didn't put it in there and it's just there. And there's this sort of social bloatware where the larger follower count is better, right? And it manifests in a lot of ways. It's like having more money is better than not having, more awards is better than not having. If you're running a company, having more employees is often seen as a kind of vanity metric. Like, the more people you have working under you, the more valuable or important you are. And that can sometimes be true, but if you pursue size for its own sake, what ends up happening is that you end up optimizing for size. You end up optimizing for follower count, for view count, for traffic. And that's a dangerous game to play, in my opinion, because not all followers are created equal. I mean, I'm not talking about creation, but just not every audience member is equally something. What is the something? There's a trait. There's a quality, right? And I think if you are really an artist, if you're really a creative and you want to make stuff, it does make sense to want to increase your influence, right? And you can always be increasing the scope of your influence. But if you try too hard to optimize for increasing your follower count as much as possible, you end up getting the lowest quality followers. And I don't mean to condescend to you guys, but there is, in every market, right, in every space, there is, there's this broad understanding that, pop songs that a lot of people like tend to be kind of mindless and kind of superficial. It's not always true, right? So with everything that I'm going to say about this, there's always exceptions, but the general principle is, if you want a very large audience, you want to make stuff that's easy for a large audience to consume, and stuff that's easy to consume ends up often ends up compromising on certain fronts, right? And I think this definitely happens to people who haven't thought very much about what exactly it is that they want to be doing. I got a DM on Twitter from someone recently who said something like, hey, I like that you're making videos, but I'm not really a fan of long, rambly videos, which I understand, makes sense. And then he said, I would be curious to see you make he sent me a link to an example of a video that he likes, and make videos like this. And that video was, it was very flashy. It was just, I think, maybe about 4 minutes long, maybe even 2 minutes long, pretty short video. Very grand visuals and very cool sound. And not to knock any of that. I respect the work that goes into making something like that. I respect the craft. I respect the hustle. I respect all of it. But that's exactly an example of what I don't want to be doing, because if I do that, I will be making it very easy for people who are passing by, kind of casually skimming along, to watch my content, right? I'm talking about YouTube in this case, to watch my content, and it's easy to watch, it's easy to share, it's kind of not much of an ask. And when you have something that's very easy to consume, you get that sort of fast food consumers, which I'm not entirely averse to, but it's not what I want right now. So I'm very happy with what I'm currently doing, which is I'm making these very long videos with not very high production quality. It's literally just me talking to the mic. And what that means is that I will be sacrificing a pretty large potential audience of people who may be interested in the substance of my ideas but don't have the time to sit and listen to all of the for half an hour long video. That's a trade-off I'm willing to make, because the way I see it, the more polished and succinct I make my videos, the less effort it's required to watch them. So these videos require effort on your part to consume. Another DM that I got from someone with a completely different point of view was that he really likes my videos, especially because they're unedited, because you get to see me thinking about my thoughts. And I could, before I publish this, I could kind of cut all the parts where I'm thinking and I'm not sure, all those things. I could cut that stuff out, so you get a shorter video that's more punchy and kind of more assertive. And what he said was, when you're thinking, it feels like you're inviting me to think along with you. And I love that. I love that I am growing an audience slowly of people who are thinking along with me. And I want, thoughtful comments in my comment section that I can reply to thoughtfully as well. And that's, it's a kind of nurturance. It's a slow build up. And yeah, I know that. And if you ask me to guess, I did have a marketing background. I do know what it's like to make short, punchy content that's easy to consume and spread it far and wide and get a large audience. When I was, in my early 20s, I used to write political news commentary in Singapore. And that stuff went pretty viral, and it was pretty, I made it pretty accessible, I think. And what would happen is I would get a lot of traffic, but the comments would be really superficial. It would be people who are just kind of passing through, they're doing this quick pattern matching kind of scan, and then they see whether they are for or against or whatever, and then they leave a kind of superficial comment. And again, I'm not judging them for their information dietary practices, right? Like, they want to read a quick blog post, they don't want to think too much about it, they just want to leave a quick comment. That's fine. I facilitated that, and it's a thing that can be done. And I enjoyed it for a while, but after a while I found it I want to say degrading, but that's kind of dramatic, but it is in a little, I think to the creative soul, there is an element of degradation there. Kind of, it can be avoided if you're thoughtful about it and you know what you want and you know what you're trying to achieve. And so it's about intent. It's about being intentional about what you're cultivating, right? And I am trying to be intentional in cultivating a sort of conversational space for people who want to think. And I'm sure there are thousands of people like that in the world, probably tens of thousands, right? And I am not in a rush to try and squeeze the golden goose, right? Like very often what happens, on a bigger scale, take what happened to a place like Tumblr, for example. Tumblr was acquired by Yahoo, and then I don't remember the specifics, but they changed their policies. They introduced ads in a certain way, and it's so sad how repeatedly you have these platforms of content that creators come to and fans come to, and there's just this very lively, beautiful scene that emerges, and that's why people like it. And then somebody buys it over potentially, and then they think, oh, this looks like a profitable thing, and then they basically turn it into a mall, right? They introduce the ads and the whatever else they do, and they add verified accounts and brands, and it just starts to get kind of, it's not fun anymore. And then people stop having fun, the creators leave, and then it's all starts to go downhill from there. And I always think it's such a failure of imagination. It's such a failure. It's a consequence of kind of short-term thinking, relatively short-term thinking, like profit seeking. I don't know the specifics, and again, I'm talking in the abstract kind of sense, so I don't want to criticize Tumblr and Yahoo per se, and I won't pretend that I read very deeply into that. But it's a general phenomenon that happens in a lot of scenes. You have a scene that's interesting, and people come together to make stuff that they love. And then because when there are people gathered, other people think, oh, that's an audience, that's a captive market, right? And you can make money from a captive market. You can monetize something, and then you can sell something, and you can make courses, and all the stuff starts happening. And that kind of fun scene becomes some commercialized in some way, right? And that does introduce new opportunities for some. It allows some hobbyists to make a living, which is cool. And but it very often spirals out of control, goes too far. Somehow there's always like some sex abuse shit happening. Why the fuck that happens? Well, I want to say I don't know, but actually I kind of know. It's there are people with charisma and power, and usually people who are drawn to these scenes, they lack a sense of belonging, or they just want to participate in something. And there's something about that atmosphere that tends to facilitate certain needy kind of relationships, coercive kind of relationships. And I don't know if you see it, or if but like I'm trying my best to avoid that kind of thing. I don't want. Well, I'm kind of conflicted about it. And so a part of how I'm gonna address that is I need to welcome a community of kind of high functioning people. By that I mean like just people who have their shit together, right? So that when the needier people show up, there's an ecosystem that can take care of them. It can't just be me telling people what to do. Like, that's not, there are some people, again, these videos are so long that if you've been watching this, so this video is now 13 minutes in. So if you've been watching this far, you probably, and my account is still kind of small. It's only 1,300 subscribers. So, you probably are watching this in good faith. Like, you trust me to some degree. I don't think you're hate watching this, right? But like, I spend some amount of time thinking about what will happen if I grow in scale and size and scope. And a lot of people don't do that. They don't prepare for success. And so when they do succeed, it catches them off guard. They're not prepared for, what do I do when I have, crazy fans sending me, suicide notes, or just that kind of really like heavy, painful stuff. I know Tim Ferriss wrote a blog post about the downsides of fame. And yeah, I guess we could talk about Tim Ferriss for a bit. I'll post the link to his blog post in the comments or the description in the comments. And I think a thing that Tim Ferriss did, and again, I respect the hustle, I respect the work, but a thing that he did was he framed a lot of his early content as kind of get quick fixes, get rich quickly ish. You know, like, I mean, he didn't literally say you're gonna get rich quickly, but he had a book title that was like the 4-hour work week, right? Like, work only 4 hours a week and then outsource the rest and not have to worry about it. 4-hour body, right? It's like when you frame things in those terms, you do appeal to a certain kind of audience. And what I try to do is I try to make myself relatively illegible or uninteresting to that kind of audience, because those are the guys that will, you know, have like low social awareness and low, you know, like they have issues. And I don't mean to judge people with issues, but you know, people with issues need help, and you can't get help from some guy making a video on YouTube, right? You need a whole getting help for serious issues is a comprehensive thing that you need. You can't just rely on an internet stranger. And I trust that everyone watching this video knows that. I don't know if, you know, as you grow, like, it becomes harder and harder to be certain that you don't have needy, kind of impressionable kids watching your videos and kind of, you know, thinking too highly of you, pedestalizing you. I'm going to make a separate video about the problems of pedestalization and demonization, both of which are, like, you know, the opposite ends of a spectrum, where they're both forms of dehumanization, right? Like, there's humans, people in the middle, and then you pedestalize someone and raise them up to be some kind of saint or god or leader, or you demonize them as like they are the reason for all the bad things that happen in the world. In either way, you kind of liberate yourself from having to face them as people, because you don't see them as people anymore. And that's a problem, right? That's a problem I would like to help address to some degree, at least within my sphere of influence, right? And it will be ironic if that eventually happens to me, but I'm kind of slightly prepared for it, like intellectually, the way you are prepared to have kids before you have them by doing all the reading and talking to parents and stuff. It's still gonna blindside you in some way, because you can never be completely prepared. Point is, I'm trying to talk about vanity metrics, optimizing for the wrong things, right? Like, if you're trying to make, like, you know, like, if you want to be rich, why do you want to be rich? Is it that you want to be respected by some people? Which people? You know, it's like getting rich for the sake of getting rich because you think being rich is intrinsically good is kind of like the laziest and most harmful, potentially harmful. It's the costliest way of achieving all the implicit goals that you haven't made explicit, right? Because it's the path that people with no imagination take. It's the path that people who haven't thought about it too much take. And so it's oversubscribed. There's too many people competing for that same, you know, I want to be an investment banker, or I want to make a lot of money. Like, just all of the paths in life that straightforwardly make a lot of money have a lot of competition. And it's cruel competition. People, you know, have, if you read about, like, just Liar's Poker, or just any book about Wall Street and stuff like that, you'll see the kind of very dog eat dog kind of I'll punch you out kind of worldview, which comes with the territory. I mean, the kind of person who is following that without thinking about what their values are, or have decided that their values is whatever makes me more money, right? I sometimes like to describe obsessive money addicts as like market cultists. Like, you know, it's like think about what a cultist is like in any cult, right? It's like they have this unquestioning, dogmatic allegiance to some ideal, right? Something that they want to achieve in, let's say, money. And they are willing to throw, and it's like a drug addict, right? Like, I'm willing to steal to pay for my addiction. I'm willing to cheat to pay for my addiction. Like, the only thing that matters is the addiction. And it's, like, if you're not, and that definitely has happened to people who, you know, if you become a YouTuber or a Twitch streamer or whatever, and then your follower count becomes your source of self-worth, like the number, and you're like, oh, I'm at 1K, and if I get to 2K, I will be happier, and so I'm gonna do anything it takes to get to 2K. So I'm gonna start making controversial videos that, attack people and cringe compilations and shame compilations, and it's just this. Then you convince yourself that, hey, there's a market for it. It's what the audience wants, so I'm just giving the people what they want, right? But what do you want? What do you really want? So tell me what you want, right? And what I really want is good conversation with thoughtful people. And I would like to expand my reach so that I can have a global network of thoughtful conversations with thoughtful people from all around the world. I have succeeded at it on Twitter quite a bit. I have like 23,000 followers on Twitter. And, I know what it would take to grow that following substantially quicker if I didn't have values and principles, and I was willing to just, I'll just dunk on political outgroup enemies all the time. Like, just make fun of people, insult people, point out hypocrisy and inconsistencies, give, like, rally people against something, quote tweet to dunk on someone, like, just, like, point at an enemy and say these people are bad and wrong, that kind of thing. Like, you do that, it will appeal to a certain class of person. Lots of people will just follow just to watch the show because they like spectacle, right? And I'm not going to claim that I am immune from enjoying spectacle. Like, spectacles are spectacles. Like, it's a human thing to enjoy spectacles. But I call that demon summoning in some ways. It's like when you have decided that you're going to do anything for views, anything for money, anything for traffic, anything for subscribers, you are allowing your appetite for that metric, which is a number. Like, it's effectively you're summoning a demon to achieve kind of grandiose goals. And the thing is, the demon, and again, I'm talking like a conceptual, I'm not talking about literal supernatural creatures or whatever. I mean just symbolic, right? The symbolic demon of the thirst for cash or subscribers or clout or whatever. When you want that so badly that you don't care what you do, that will then, then you might think that, I'm just going to do it for a while and then I'll correct along the way, for example. But you start that thing, you end up becoming like a Schelling point. You become a place that people who want to participate in the demonic rituals, they will congregate around you, they will join you, they will rally behind you and shout. And then it will take on a character and mind of its own, and you will no longer be able to control it. That's the thing about summoning demons. The demon consumes everything, including the summoner, right? And this is like ancient wisdom that weary elders have been trying to tell us in stories for millennia. But every new generation, there's a new dark lord or whoever who comes along and he's like, why don't we summon demons? Demons are powerful. Let's use demons to get what we want. Come on, man. Yeah, so I'm not saying that people who make, entertaining videos are summoning demons. I'm just saying that I'm just trying to think out loud about my approach and why I do what I do. I do think that once I've done this well enough, long enough, substantially enough, and I feel like I've covered all of the topics all of the topics that I care about, and I've kind of said everything I have to say, I think I'll make like probably maybe 300 or 400 videos, right? I'm trying to do one every day, publish one every day. Sometimes I do 2 or 3 videos at once. Publish one video every day, do it for a couple of years maybe, build an audience. People start to know who I am. People start to have an idea about what I'm about. Then I think I can do more bold things, take bigger risks, and talk about some touchy and controversial stuff. And when I do that, it's from a place of good faith, and people know to assume good faith because I have that built up body of work that demonstrates what I'm about, and that I'm trying to do things in a nourishing way. That's what I'm trying to do. Will it work out? I don't know. It's part of it is up to the there for the grace of God. I don't know. It's up to the audience to some degree. But I do have some influence over the audience, right? And I'm trying to do it as well as I can. But yeah, I talked about fame in the broad sense earlier, and one of the things I said was, one of the things I have said, when I was like 20, I used to have a bunch of friends that I sit around with and drink beers with and just kind of speculate about celebrities and politicians and what's really going on in the world, what do we know, and what would we do if we had power, if we were in charge, we'd do things differently, right? And people say all these things, but So I was seriously curious about that stuff, and in a way I'm doing this out of intellectual curiosity. Like, I want to know what happens as I continue to build a network of very thoughtful friends around the world. Like, is it inevitable that it too will end up being kind of, will it also eat itself alive the way a lot of fandoms become toxic? Can I kind of preemptively prevent that? I'm gonna try, but if it happens, by choosing to be very deliberate about this, I feel like I'm doing an experiment that will be useful to the next group of people like me, right? Which is, if it works out, that's amazing, right? If it doesn't work out, the way in which I fail will also be interesting to those people. They will see that I made my best possible effort. And yeah, man, I want to drop a quick note about Hayley Williams, who is one of my, I would say, again, I say don't pedestalize people and don't idolize people. And so, I respect her a lot. I admire her as an artist. I have followed her work and her band's work for a decade plus. And, it breaks my heart that she experiences, depression, and she gets hate comments. And she's this small little firecracker of a human with so much love and so much passion for life. And she cares about other people so deeply. And she tries to do what she thinks is right. And so like she's in Nashville, and she did like an Instagram story about people who were tourists who were going to Nashville, and then she made an Instagram story, I think, or a tweet, something. Then that got retweeted, and then people are dunking on her, and I just wanted to I wanna defend her. And I know, I see that there are people defending her because she has spent a long time building an audience with goodwill and people who are broadly good, like by my assessment. Like, I mean, again, there are always going to be some weird creeps and needy people. She has 5 million followers on Twitter, right? Like, you can't have 5 million followers without some very weird, strange people. But I wish her well. There's an interview she did with Zane Lowe where she said that she was feeling suicidal, and the thing that kept her from doing anything was she thought about her dog, Alf. And that hurts, man. That's like, she has done so much good for me, right? And for others. And like, a lot of the vibe that I bring to Twitter and to YouTube and everything I do is influenced by me watching her do her thing. Like, I saw her do what she did, and I'm like, I want to do what she's doing in my sphere of my life, right? And I'm sure she has people looking out for her and stuff. But like, the best thing I can do is to honor that vibe, right? That I appreciate about her, which is, like, her latest album is called Petals for Armor, which is about vulnerability and being open about your feelings and stuff like that. And I love that message. I feel like there's strength in that message. I remember I have a Twitter thread somewhere that said, it was emo bands, like bands, music, that taught me that you can have strength and you can have status, and you can, by being vulnerable about your feelings, you sing songs about your pains and your private fears and worries and anxieties, and you can share that with people, and you can build a whole, I call it like a sweaty church with guitar riffs and head banging. And that is still something that appeals very much to me. I still love that. And it makes me want to go back to music a little bit more. I think there's something about the package of a song. You can say things in a song that people will listen to that they might not be as open to listening to in a casual conversation, right? Because there's something about the slightly fictitious aspect of songwriting. And yeah, man, mostly said what I want to say. And let me know. I would love to hear from anybody who has experienced building communities, building audiences. If you're thinking about doing it and you haven't done anything, I'd love to hear from you as well. I think very often the people who are full of self-doubt and uncertainty about how they would handle it, they are probably the right people to be doing it. Because the people who do it that shouldn't are the people who just go in with like cocksure confidence. They're like, I've got this, everything I do is going to be great, I'm going to make whatever content I like, and nothing bad will ever happen. Like, it's those people that have to be a little bit more wary. But yeah, if you have made video, if you've made, whether you're a musician, an artist, community manager, I'd love to hear from you. And I will end this here. Thanks for hanging out. Done.